2016 general election heralded what some on the left regarded as the first major attempt to forge a broad alliance under the Right to Change campaign and banner. Now, two of the main groups who are part of that, Sinn Féin and Solidarity People Before Profit, are engaged in a political row over any future coalition deals. Sinn Féin says they are open to discuss coalition options subject to policy issues with any party. Solidarity People Before Profit accuse Sinn Féin of moving to the right in a bid to seek power with either Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. And in the midst of all this, the Labour Party is still trying to rebuild its shattered base after 5 years in office with Fine Gael. So what now of any left unity? Joining me, David Cullinan of Sinn Féin, Brid Smith of Solidarity People Before Profit and Jed Nash of the Labour Party. Brid Smith, Sinn Féin make the point that if you're ruling them out as a potential coalition partner, no matter what policies you have on housing, education, homelessness, health, they're meaningless, they're pointless, because you won't be in a government, so you're not going to get anywhere with any of those policies. Can you argue with that?
Well, a couple of things. I was listening to your promo for this item earlier on. It said, how can the left not get on? And that implies that the right get on. And they don't. Wait till we go back on Wednesday and you'll see skin and hair flying verbally between Leo Varadkar and Micheál Martin. So it's not like the left don't get on and the right do. All of the parties compete with each other all of the time. But we never went into our think tank with the words Sinn Féin on our lips or on our minds. It was a journalist there who asked the question, would we go into coalition with Sinn Féin if they were to go into coalition with Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael? So that was the question we addressed. We said no. We said no, there would be no coalition with Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael because, as Jed Nash has witnessed and as the Green Party have witnessed, when those who espouse a left-wing rhetoric take power with parties of the right, they are contaminated by those right-wing parties and their policies and their ideas, not given the freedom to impose their own. Having said that, we perfectly understand that Sinn Féin's leadership have been, intimating and pushing the idea that they may go in as coalition partners with either Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, but they have also said that this will come back to a special conference of their members for discussion and for decision. And I would like to appeal to those members, those decent community activists with whom I work every day of the week. And by the way, I work very well with Davy Cullinan. I've been supporting all of his bills on bandit hour contracts and union recognition, all the rest of it. But so I would like to appeal to those activists, do not allow the leadership bring Sinn Féin towards a right-wing drift.
Brid Smith, isn't there a simple reality to all of this? That in order to get into government at any time in the foreseeable future, there's going to have to be a coalition with a significant party in the middle of it, which has a block of 50 or 60 seats in order to make this work. It's not going to happen without one big party. And right now, the only two big blocks of any significant numbers in that area are Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael.
And they should coalesce together because there's hardly a paper-thin size of a difference between them in their policies, despite the fact that they read each other every day of the week. And that would mean that the left would be a stronger opposition together. And indeed, when the Labour Party had, the Gilmore effect a number of years ago, they didn't even discuss the possibility of working with others on the left. Instead, they went straight into coalition as they've done down through the decades.
David Cullinan, it's been clear over the summer months that Sinn Féin have been laying down a number of markers and preparing the ground at least so that when the party goes into the next general election, you're keeping the options open on a potential coalition that could involve either Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael.
Well, first of all, Brian, I know the Sinn Féin membership. I've been a member of the party for 20 years. I know what they want, and it's the same as what I want. And also the people who vote for my party, and I would argue the people who vote for Labour and People Before Profit as well, they want a genuine alternative to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. They want parties in government that are genuinely committed to fair, progressive and Republican politics. And we made it clear over the summer months a number of things. One, yes, we want to be in government. Of course, we want to be at the heart of any government and part of a partnership government that is about bringing about a real change for people. We've also said that we will talk to all parties about policies, because the next election campaign, in my view, should be about, are the parties in this state genuinely committed to ending the housing crisis, taking people off the streets, building homes for people, ending inequalities in healthcare? And every time we try and talk about the issues, journalists and other people want to bring about to arithmetic, so we will make it about issues with respect. And you see the Sinn Féin membership the Brid talks about.
Can I ask you this question?
Just let me make this point. They are rock solid. and they are rock solid in their politics, and they will only ever countenance government, and in fact, as are the Sinn Féin leadership, will only ever countenance government if we get a fair, progressive and Republican
Can I
programme
ask
for
you this
government.
question? Is the Sinn Féin position that is evolving over the last couple of months, it is essentially a political bluff. You're putting out the notion that you're willing to contemplate coalition with either Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael in order that when you go into a campaign, you're not going to be caught on the same hook as the last election of ruling out other parties, and you want to try to maximise your votes.
I can see Jed to my right nodding his head, and let me respond this way. Sinn Féin was in government for 10 years in the north. If you look at the peace process...
I accept that, but we're talking about the issues here. Is it a political bluff?
Party,
is it a political bluff?
If you allow me to answer the question, we're an all-island party, and you're asking me, is it a bluff? What I'm pointing out to you is that we were in government for 10 years, and any fair-minded person would say that we delivered on every single commitment, every single promise that we made in terms of all of those agreements. It got to a point where there was alleged corruption, and also our partner in government...
We know the circumstances that surrounded the collapse of the executive. We're not going to go into that. We don't have the time. We don't have the time for that issue.
But what I'm saying to you is this: we will apply the same logic down south. We are not bluffers. We want to be in government. We're serious about government, and we're putting it up to parties both on the left and the right, and to those people who are listening as well, who want the type of government that we want. If you want it, you need a party like Sinn Féin in government.
Jed Nash, is there not a sense of déjà vu about all of this? These are exactly the arguments that have gone on for years in the Labour Party about whether or not the party should be in coalition, and if so, who it should be in coalition with.
Yeah, to a point, yes. And clearly, I mean, we paid a political price in terms of our participation in the last government. But having said that, the easiest thing for us to do back in 2011 would have been to sit out that government, to build the party and do that in a very selfish way, and then take the reins of power as the majority party in the next election.
Would that would have been better, perhaps, in the long run for Labour?
For the party, possibly, but certainly not for those who depend on public services and those who depend on the state for their income, for example. We're proud of the role that we took in creating, well over 200,000 jobs, in fixing a bust economy, in some of the measures that I took as Minister for Employment, where, we have new trade union laws in this country that are working very well for members of trade unions, to increase the national minimum wage. There's nobody around this table except myself who's responsible, for example, for direct pay increases for 300,000 people. We in fact see a measure that I introduced 2 years ago bearing fruit for 50,000 construction workers in the next few weeks, when there's going to be a 10% pay increase across the board under a new sectoral contract.
People will accept that within government the Labour Party did get policies implemented. But looking to the future, Brendan Howlin implied, I think, that Labour is willing to look at options after the next election. But presumably there has to be a critical mass in the Labour Party after the next election in terms of TDs.
And the members decided what's unique about the Labour Party is that the Labour Party historically has been the party of the left that's prepared to govern. The People Before Profit and Solidarity Party, I mean, I was amused at the level of coverage that statement got this week. It's the equivalent of me saying, if Martin O'Neill's listening, I'm not declaring for Ireland, I won't play for Ireland in the next World Cup. There's never going to be, they were never going to be in government. They're not a party of government, and I see that Sinn Féin are now moving to a position where they are at least preparing the ground with their members to consider government.
People Before Profit, Solidarity and some of the groups on the left, you set a standard of what you want to achieve, and it's that or nothing. That you're not willing to actually enter government, even with someone like Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, if you could reach agreement on policies issues with them.
Look, I always worry about the collective amnesia of the population of this country, and indeed the media. I'm rereading Frank Connolly's book on Tom Gilmartin, and the level of corruption, skullduggery, bribery, threats, and outright criminality that Fianna Fáil have been guilty of in the past should never be forgotten. Now, I'm not saying they're guilty of it now, but for Sinn Féin or anybody else or Labour to call themselves left-wing... Let me finish my point.
Labour Party legislation under Brendan Howlin took money out of politics.
I didn't interrupt you.
Jed Nash, allow me to
I did not interrupt you, Jed. Now, let's be fair. My point being that by breathing life into the likes of Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael and calling yourself a left-wing party does not make proper rhetoric. Now, we are for a left-wing government in this country. We would want to see the left take power, and we want to see a left-wing government. But you will not do that by increasingly going into coalitions with the two right-wing blocs.
But you see, there's a fault line.
The best thing you can do in order to undermine the right-wing blocs is to stay out of power and build the left and stop making people cynical about the left and their behaviour in this country.
Is that not an issue, though, that going into government potentially with Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael will be seen by some on the left as the slippery slope?
Well, first of all, there's a false line in that argument, because what Sinn Féin said, and I made it clear a number of moments ago, one, we want to be in government, and two, we will talk to all parties. And there's a notion that the next government might be simply a two-party government. It could be three, it could be four different groupings. What we are saying to the electorate is the most sensible thing you can say to the electorate. I heard Micheál Martin this morning, again ruling out Sinn Féin. He also ruled out Fine Gael. The people know that is nonsense, and they know after the election parties have to talk. We're prepared to talk to all parties. That's all we're prepared to do. Now, if Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael are not prepared to accept a programme for government that takes children who are in emergency accommodation out of emergency accommodation and into proper homes, if they're not prepared to accept a programme for government that takes people off hospital trolleys, then Sinn Féin will not sign up to such a programme for government. We will either be in government delivering a fair, progressive and Republican programme for government, or we will be in opposition.
What about maintaining inequality in pay for teachers and nurses? And what about maintaining this island as a taxation?
And Pierre Starty has done more on that issue than anybody else in the Dáil.
Jed Nash, I just want to bring you in for a second. The Labour experience, and you've mentioned that, both from the springtide with 33 seats, when you got hammered, 37 seats with Eamon Gilmore, and you got hammered after that coalition experience. Many people think that maybe the Labour Party would want to take a long view of this at this point and look towards not the next election, but maybe one after that, before the party would even contemplate going into another coalition.
Well, our objective is to rebuild the party, and we're looking at the future. Nobody, for example, around this table of the left, and I use that term in the broadest sense, is looking, for example, at the deep policy work that we're doing at the moment around the future of work and how we make sure that all of the positive gains for working people over the last century can be brought forward into this very uncertain future of work that we're going to see now, and all of the insecurity that people have. We're looking at that because I think people look to social democratic parties like the Labour Party and the trade union movement to make that future
very
better.
That's quickly, Jed Nash.
But I think it's really interesting.
Could you see yourselves working with Sinn Féin and or Solidarity People before?
Brendan Howlin has said very, very clearly that we're prepared to work with anybody with a common agenda to make sure that the lives of Irish people are improved, that living standards are improved, and that we can keep and that we can sustain a positive direction in terms of economic development.
And what I want is an alternative government to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. By the way, we do work together in sectoral committees on issues like workers' rights, and we'll continue to do so. Would I want to see that in government? Absolutely.
I'll leave the last word, Brid Smith.
Yes, of course, we will work with anybody who progress the issues that affect working class people and workers' rights, but we don't go with Sinn Féin and Labour when they vote to sell off public lands in council housing estates, for example. So there are problems among the left, and we need to work these out together. But we're absolutely out. They're right wing. They support the rich and the developers and the builders and the horrible traditions of this country.
Okay, I'm afraid, Brid Smith, we have to leave it there. Jed Nash of the Labour Party, David Cullinan of Sinn Féin, and Brid Smith of Solidarity People Before Profit. Thanks for joining us, Justin.
And that's our lot for today.